welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. So glad to have you with us. As we conclude this 6th season of shows, I will offer a few reflections on the 5 years that this program has been on the digital airwaves, equal to the amount of time that Sharon Moore could spend in a prison jumpsuit. That's coming up later in the show, but before you head out for New Year's Eve festivities, a decision I'm willing to bet you made faster than Lane Kiffin, we are going to offer an intellectual party as we continue the second part of my conversation about the NBA's gambling scandal with sports journalist Regina Ham. And as the clock ticks down to the start of our first segment, Crime Redefined Podcast hosts Mehul, Anjaria, and Dion Mitchell join us to provide updates on their investigation of the case of missing broadcast industry professional Terrence Woods. And joining us now are Mehul, Anjaria, and Dion Mitchell, the hosts of the Crime Redefined Podcast. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's great to have the both of you on. It's been a while since we had you guys on the show. You guys were on our Fit to Speak from the Archive show over a year ago,
yes,
where you guys announced the independent investigation with the GoFundMe for the case of missing broadcast industry professional Terrence Woods. It's a case that we all here have been very, very passionate about. But one of the things I did notice when I was kind of sort of going through, just kind of checking in to see how things were going, was that the original GoFundMe page that you guys had set up for this was not accepting donations,
Yes.
and then it got eventually taken down. So what happened with that?
Well, first of all, your guess is as good as mine. That was nothing on our end. Nothing has changed in our desire to raise money for this investigation. I contacted GoFundMe, and there's a couple of reasons why a page could be pulled down, besides malfeasance, of course. One is that you haven't had a donation in a while, or you haven't given an update in a while. Neither was the case. So GoFundMe basically said, hey, launch a new one. And we felt that was actually a good thing, give it a little bit of a fresh paint job. So the original one was called Investigating the Disappearance of Terrence Woods. We first put that up about 2 years ago, Eugene. So the new one that is now active is called Help Find Terrence Woods Jr., Support Our Search. And so just to be clear, this is not a new fundraising initiative. The first one was prematurely stopped. We were asking for, I believe, $40,000 to get this done right. And to date, unfortunately, we've got about $1,500. So this new one is not really any different whatsoever, other than a different paint job, a different title, an opportunity for a fresh start.
Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating, Eugene, because it was nice to see some money in there. It wasn't brand new. And then for whatever reason, GoFundMe just decided to arbitrarily kind of pull it down, and it kind of stopped any what appeared as momentum. In fact, we had received a donation, I think, at least 6 weeks prior to them taking it down, which was really frustrating.
Well, what's ironic, Eugene, is that there have been fraudulent GoFundMes trying to raise money off of the back of Terrence Woods and his family. And those seem to be very difficult to have taken down. And whereas we clearly have a legit one where Terrence Woods Sr. is on video endorsing us, they took that down. Don't know. We're back on track. That's the important thing.
Which is a very, very good thing. And with the money that you guys did raise in the first go around, what was done with the money?
Well, number one, it's not fully spent, because we're looking to do very intense, expensive steps here, and so we have hired a PI. He's run some reports in the background on Terrence Woods Jr., trying to get some info that's not public, trying to give us some leads, trying to eliminate some things. You've seen we've put out some press releases as well. But that's not all been spent, because there are bigger ticket items we want to do off the bat. Number one, we've talked about this ad nauseum, digital forensics on Terrence's laptop. Number two, we have a wonderful opportunity that we've not been able to take advantage of. We spoke to the DA and the Sheriff's Department in Idaho, and they said, you know what, guys, the best way to learn about this case is come on out. We'll take you to the site. Now, we didn't have sufficient funding for Dion and I to go out there. And just to be clear, if we could personally fund this, we would do that. But what we're trying to donate is our time and our expertise and our network. So we are relying on funding to do any of this. So we're ready to start. We're just not really out the barn yet.
But also, by having our network and especially through Mehul and his contacts, we're able to really reduce the budget of this. You know, we're not going to get, charged full tilt for the team that we bring in, because we're able to pull some favors in and do some things around the edges. But the problem with raising such a small amount of money right now is that we can't really start anything big, because it would be like starting to film a project and not having the money to finish the project. It would just stale, leads would go cold. So when we jump in, we kind of, this is something that you really can't do half arse. You got to go in full, and there's some things that we can do, personally investigate, go up there and take a look around. But as far as really hiring the experts, you have to have the funding to be able to do that. And it's been frustrating. I wish at this time of year we were announcing on your show, hey, we have news, we know where he's at, or we know what happened to him.
And by the way, we are collecting a lot of info. There's a lot of people reaching out to us. The problem is in most cases, it's rank speculation. It's not a solid tip. If it were a solid tip, we are not equipped financially to go thoroughly investigate it. And so, our approach is a little bit different here. I think there's some value in podcasts and shows continually talking about Terrence Woods. Get it out there, keep it out there. We want someone to come forward, of course. But our approach is different. We're not waiting for somebody to come forward. We want to go out and collect the new evidence. And that is a much, much higher hill to climb, and times are tough. People don't have the extra money. It may be the political climate is not right, but we're still here. We want to do this the right way. We have reached out to many politicians in the Maryland area. Governor Moore, if you're listening, we could use a little help here.
Yeah.
That's not been fruitful. I kind of think maybe a celebrity is going to have to come through. And all I'm asking is not for them to bankroll it, but to promote our efforts. There are high-profile individuals who post about this case. Ben Crump is one. Ben, if you're out there, give us a retweet on one of our posts. That's all we're asking. We just need to get that ball rolling, Dion and Eugene, and I'm confident that snowball will get huge and we'll be off to the races.
It is very important that I think the exposure, as you've said, is something that it is key.
This is key. Yeah. We can't pass go until we get somebody to shines a huge spotlight on Terrence.
Yeah,
exactly. And as you guys have stated, as the shows have been done and as we continue to examine this case, because we have been at this for quite a bit on this program, one of the things is that, yes, people have been coming out, indeed, with tips, some of it, again, the veracity of which can be questioned or whatever. So the question then becomes, how important is it for the public to really provide, tips about this, and especially credible tips? Because there are some things, quite candidly, and I'll say this because, of course, this is my program, you have a lot of crackpots out there who are saying a lot of things that, there was even one stuff on our YouTube channel where it's like, this is Bigfoot country, and that sort of thing, et cetera. But again, what does credibility do in terms of helping, you guys in this investigative process to leading us to where or what happened to Terrence?
But what you learn right away is how first of all, how the tip comes in and what they're stating. The ones that are kind of crackpots are like theories, I think this happened. But if someone puts their name and a phone number and an email address to it, we take it more seriously. And we've had a couple of people reach out to us recently that were involved in the actual boots on the ground investigation, which we're trying to tie up right now. Those are the kind of tips that we need. Not somebody's cousin, sister's brother-in-law type thing. We need someone that was either part of the crew or part of the local support team that was part of the shoot that were local hires, or people part of the investigation where you can pick up some tips, or maybe they heard something. Those are the people that we're getting after. And I'd say, Mehul, probably over the last year that's picked up a little bit of steam. And I mentioned this when we first did a show with you, Eugene, that people cannot hang on to this stuff. And I think that's what we're seeing now. They think it's, maybe the threat of something bad happening or being exposed to them is, getting softer. And so they're more willing to come and speak up. They want, this is eating at them. And I believe that sooner or later, that's going to happen also from the team out of Raw in London. And we just need someone to get a hold of that crew sheet so we can start running some of these people down.
Yeah, Dion makes a great point that on one hand, it sucks that the trail is getting colder and colder. On the other hand, maybe the stigma is off a little bit and people are less afraid to come forward. We've had some, I would say, credible people who have some unique type of investigation skills. And they are actually running some stuff in the background and they're keeping us posted. None of that is an actionable tip yet, but they're running it and they're keeping in contact with us. Similarly, like Dion was saying, we have people in our network. We've had like retired FBI people who are giving us suggestions, looking into stuff. But still, they're sort of waiting to say, press go, because you've got to pay these people. I work in post-conviction cases and, overturning wrongful convictions. And I'm a DNA expert. I know what I charge. I know what other experts charge. Like Dion said, even not paying full freight, this is an expensive proposition to do it right. Because again, we're not dealing in speculation. We're dealing in evidence, not only to get at the truth, but number two, there could be a prosecution here. So this needs to be done right.
That's a great point. And that's actually, I would jump on my next comment. That's exactly right. That anything that we find will have to be turned over to law enforcement and to the family. So we just can't, grab a couple buddies, run up into the woods, take some pictures, stumble all over evidence and stuff. That's why you have to bring in professionals so they know how to collect the evidence, document the evidence, and then turn it over to, law enforcement officials. And that's always kind of been in the back of our brain about trying to, make sure that we do this right.
This has to be really, in other words, this has to be court ready.
Yeah.
So that, if/when, again, we don't know for sure, but, it's like if/when we have to go to court, and prove one way or another that something may have nefarious been happened to Terrence. Now, again, we hope that's not the case.
Correct.
But let's just say that it was. Then, again, there's chain of custody, these sorts of things that have to be kept in mind. So
and that just emphasizes sitting down with the DA and the police officers and say, help us not to step in it. Although they're not actively investigating, help us know what is going to be useful to you if we do the legwork and uncover it, and how best to preserve it, present it, and make that as most helpful as possible. Because at some point, like in a criminal investigation, let's take the Rob Reiner going on right now. There's a lot of speculation, but ultimately he's not charged until law enforcement goes to the DA and said, here's our package of evidence. And it's got to be tight, because if there's any holes in it, the DA is going to say, might be obvious who did this, but I can't take this to court. And we just don't want to be in that situation.
And you get proof of this stuff and in the criminal proceeding, as you guys know, and as I think our audience knows, and especially here in the States, is that it is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, not a preponderance of the evidence, which, if there were to be a civil action, though, on the back of what is being investigated, whether it's on the part of Mr. Woods in doing this, then, again, some of this stuff in this investigatory proceeding may very well help in that, if it comes to that.
Now, to be crystal clear, it's not our hypothesis that there was criminal wrongdoing here. That is not it at all. We don't know what happened. We're trying to find it out. But just in case it's at that extreme, that's why we have to conduct ourselves at this level.
Just think of us, Mehul and I, as umpires, balls and strikes.
That's right.
Facts are the facts.
Exactly. And we need the facts in this so that really this case can be resolved for the Woods
Because
family.
Yeah, because the best way to go about this is essentially to forget everything you know. Because what we know for a fact is minimal, the hardcore facts. We have a lot of speculation, we have a lot of rumors. So we want to go in there and forget all of that, create a new narrative that is following the evidence. That's the best way I can explain it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for our viewers in this closing moment that we have here, remind our viewers of what the new GoFundMe is and how people can help you guys out in this investigatory proceeding.
Yeah, so the title is Help Find Terrence Woods Jr., Support Our Search. If you go to any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, we're going to have a link in our bio to that site, to the GoFundMe site. We request that everybody help us promote it. If you could donate, that's wonderful, but almost equally value is to help get this exposure.
Bare minimum, at least, repost it. Every little bit helps, whether it's $1 or whether it's just, posting it 2 or 3 times on your social media platform.
Yeah. And I have to say that, in terms of engagement, what I've noticed that TikTok actually has the best engagement. There are constantly comments on there and people, giving heartfelt thoughts to senior. Unfortunately, it's just not translating into donations.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the hurdle that we're trying to bridge.
And let us hope that that hurdle will be bridged. And of course, with TikTok, especially with the younger generation of folks, and especially a lot of them being into true crime stories, because this is definitely one of the big true crime stories in this, that hopefully will translate into so many other areas, because one person tells their friends, another person tells their friends, and so forth and so on. Maybe it reaches a lot of people's parents and that sort of thing. And, again, you never know who you meet in this. So, listen, gentlemen, I think that, you guys are doing incredible work. Let us hope that this stuff continues. If anybody has got any tips for you guys, how can they reach you guys if they've got some tips that they want to share with you all?
Through any of the social media portals. You could also email us, contact@zerocliffmedia.com.
But also our Crime Redefined podcast page also has a messaging platform. A lot of people have reached out to us through there.
Very good. Very good. And we'll make sure to have all of this stuff lined up for our audience. So, Mehul, Anjaria, and Dion Mitchell, the hosts of the Crime Redefined Podcast, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Eugene. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Eugene. Appreciate it, and happy holidays to you.
Same to you guys. Folks, make no mistake that we are going to continue to keep the pressure on this case, because as Dion mentioned, there are some people that may very well, as we head into this new year, may very well start to crack. And we are going to continue here at Common Sense Entertainment and this news division, CSE Media. We are going to continue to cover this case, no matter where this leads. I've made no secret on this program the questions that I have for Raw TV, the UK-based production company that Terrence freelanced for when he went missing. And when I posed simple questions to them a couple of months ago on this program, they wouldn't answer them. And I am not here to accuse any person or any entity of anything. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Not here to accuse anybody of anything. But it is quite curious, though, the reaction, or in some cases, lack thereof, as it has pertained to this case, especially on the other side of the pond. I find that much of the UK media have been awfully silent about this case. They really have. So who knows what that's all about? Well, what I do know is that we here at Common Sense Entertainment and CSE Media, the news division that produces this program here in the United States, are part of a paradigm shift in showcasing how missing persons cases, specifically missing minorities, should be covered. and we have done more extensive coverage of this case than any media outlet anywhere in the world, especially those outlets with much greater resources than this little indie company that I co-run. And with all of the developments that we have been reporting on this program, especially with my personal belief that there may very well be nefarious actors around in terms of what happened to Terrence or in where Terrence is, it is about damn time for the media here in the United States, and especially those that are in the United Kingdom, to make it a New Year's resolution to follow suits. On the eve of Thanksgiving, I spoke with sports journalist Regina Ham about the NBA's gambling scandal and its implications for the league. You can see the first parts of that interview right here on this channel. We'll have a link in the description below, or you can click the iCard on the top right of your screen. When we left off, I asked her as to what the role of outlets like ESPN are insofar as reporting on this scandal, the impact that this scandal could have on the college sports, particularly in the NIL era, and as far as sports gambling nationwide, what the path forward may be.
I think the tough thing is there's no immediate answer right now. There is no guaranteed answer of this is the solution. This is how we solve this problem. It's the 21st. This is a typical, very quintessential 21st century problem, and new problems require new solutions. Like you said, you've seen the ESPN personalities who apologize for using this app promoted by Stephen A. Smith. And the interesting thing is, when you do some reading, the article I read that came out from a great website, Awful Announcing, I believe it was the 11th or 12th of November, so just last week, mentioned that not only was this app, this mobile gaming company, pretty nefarious business practice-wise. So, like you said, Mina Kimes apologized, Laura Rutledge, Kendrick Perkins, all apologized for using this solitaire cash app. There is one name who has not had to apologize entirely. And Stephen, there you go, Stephen A. Smith. He has not apologized. He's kept all the posts up regarding it. He hasn't really distanced himself from it. And there seems to be that begs the question. This endorsement is a little bit harder to unwind. Stephen A. Smith has a lot of power at ESPN, a lot of power. He makes a 9-figure deal.
That's right.
Money that most of us could dream to see. Most reporters who want to work in sports, who want to work for ESPN, will never see 9 figures. They just won't. It's the reality. And yet he's held to a different standard. You see Colin Cowherd make, when his show is on the air, you hear him make these promotional pushes for different, sports betting.
Yes.
As someone who's worked in the industry for better part of almost 10 years, it is disheartening to see. Like, obviously, a sports commentator like Stephen A. Smith is going to be held to a different ethical standard than a sports journalist is going to be held. And commentator and journalist, as we have to remind ourselves, 2 very different words. One gives opinions, one is ruled by facts for the most part. So you're seeing a lot of these esteemed reporters get caught up in this, and it's a bit of an ethical gray area. I don't have a law degree, so I can't speak to the legality of it, but you see the shift that has been taken towards a lot of the way that FS1 or ESPN has handled sports betting. They have integrated it heavily. They have made shows on it. They promote it. When we say sports journalism today, unfortunately, a lot of people think, Pat McAfee, Stephen A. Smith, commentators again, sports betting shows. They don't think, maybe like you and I do, hearkening back to maybe aging myself a little, of Outside the Lines and how great that was to watch. And you see that the tentacles of sports betting have gotten into sports journalism so much. I worry for the fate of the industry. I worry for the fate of those like, Laura Rutledge and Mina Kimes, who again have rescinded their involvement. They actually have taken down all the posts. They've made public apologies, which that is, accountability is important. I worry for young up and coming journalists who want to work at places like ESPN and Fox Sports 1 and, who maybe want to work at places like Barstool, which is a separate conversation.
Yeah.
What are you going to have to do in a sense of selling your soul when it comes to ethics and sports journalism and sports betting? And it has become so ingrained in the industry as a whole. I do wonder, is it possible to even separate it anymore? And Eugene, I don't think it is. I don't think we can separate sports betting from sports journalism. Like, how many times have you watched a show or Sports Center? And there have, they'll talk about, the Ravens-Bills game on Sunday, for example. I know it's not this week, but hypothetical.
Yeah.
And you're getting injury reports, but you're getting injury reports for the sake of you're betting on fantasy football. You're not just getting the injury reports for the sake of an injury report. And I think once you have put it ingrained so much, the best analogy I can think of, it's like a bad cookie recipe. You can make a new batch, but once that ingredient's in there, sometimes it is very tough to take out. And I think that's where we've reached as an industry, is that ingredient is wedged in there. It's going to be really tough to remove it. And this latest NBA scandal hopefully will be the catalyst to help that happen, to put up boundaries between sports betting and sports journalism and the industry as a whole. But the likelihood of that, because of the revenue, is pretty high.
Yeah. And one of the things that I will note for our viewers is that, as many people know, having done this show, I'm a fan of the UFL, formerly the XFL. And the XFL was one of the first to actually put the spread and the over-under in the score bug, in the score graphic, and all on the bottom of the screen. So we are seeing how this stuff has kind of sort of permeated in this. Again, when you say that the toothpaste has been already out of the tube at this point, it's hard to put it back in when even the leagues are integrating this stuff in the actual graphics that the viewers watch.
It's really difficult.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what do you see here? Because I know that a lot of people will talk about the societal ills. We talk about gambling addiction and everything that goes along with that. So I guess to continue on with the kind of sort of solution spin, it's like there's not really, as you said, it's not really a solution. It's, you need new approaches, right? You need new approaches.
You do. Like, modern problems require modern solutions, like that's the thing. And it's tough because the leagues, especially the NBA here, are between a rock and a hard place, right? The sports betting industry is projected to hit almost $18.5 billion this year. Billion with a B. Leagues that have DraftKings, FanDuel as some of the biggest sponsors of sports and gambling, to the most well-known names, they get money to their leagues for these partnerships, which are worth millions. How do you say, as a commissioner, the problem is, okay, sports betting is becoming an ilk in our league. Our players are getting threats. We're seeing fans kind of watching the league, not really for the enjoyment of the sport, but for the overall monetary aspect. Okay, we cut ties with FanDuel. We cut ties with DraftKings. Who fills that void? Who fills that giant financial void for
That's
money?
the thing, right?
It all comes down to money. It really does. And so you have these players right. And you have these players and coaches who don't enjoy this aspect, who arguably are like, this is dumb. We don't want this. We find it affecting not only the quality of fans, but the quality of a league as a whole, because now you're catering to these giant sports betting organizations. What do you do? And that's where you want to minimize the problem and are hoping that the athletes are going to still want to play for competitiveness, not for, hitting a prop bet or any such thing. But there isn't a simple solution. They are so interlocked with these 4 big American sports leagues. And it's popular among sports fans. What do? You want to keep the integrity of the leagues. You want to keep the earnings. But how do you do that in an age where now you're having scandal taint your leagues? You're having issues become more prevalent that make it seem like you cannot operate a league with integrity. And that is the problem. I think that not only will the NBA scandal that has come out bring up, especially with ties to the mafia and potential organized crime, which not great by any stretch. Again, Ocean's 11 comes to my head. Where's George Clooney and Brad Pitt when you need them?
I know.
You know, but how can you, like, if you're someone who watches sports like we do necessarily, you know, I'm not a gambler, never really have been. If I'm watching sports, how can I, like we said earlier, how can I trust what we're watching? How can I trust that, you know, Bryce Harper isn't trying to stay out of an injury, trying to stay out of a lineup because of XYZ terms? You don't know that. And like, maybe also this is deep diving brain, but like, those are questions.
Yeah, they are questions, because I was even just thinking right now as we were talking, Regina, that the whole conversation in the NBA about load management, right? There was this whole thing, about load management. There was even the answer from Michael Jordan on the NBA on NBC, about this. So it's interesting where that and kind of sort of where some aspects of the competition and whether or not there are certain things that are happening, taking yourself out of games and that sort of thing, whether that has something to do with that. The last things on Regina in this is that, and again, I just thought about this. We've talked about the pros a lot in this, obviously NBA and then all the other leagues, but then I want to think about a little bit as we think about college sports and NIL and everything else. Do you think that this is going to have an impact in that arena?
Oh, I think the short answer is yes, right? That the longer sports betting's around, the longer they're enmeshed like mac and cheese. Not like, no, it's less mac and cheese. Mac and cheese is delicious. It's like peanut butter and anchovies. As long it's gross, but someone will eat it somewhere.
Yeah.
As long as those two become enmeshed, that will happen in NIL. The thing is, with NIL, it is still fairly new as a concept. Like, the concept's always been there. The discussion about paying collegiate players has always been there. But now we see actual NIL deals. We see these players receiving millions and millions of dollars in deals. I think it's still a little too early to say exactly the impact because we do not know yet. I would say give it 5 years. We're going to have this discussion of, like we said, it's already affecting players in terms of threats. These college kids, because they're children, especially at my ripe old age, they're getting horrific comments on social media. We have, for example, a true freshman at the University of Maryland, Malik Washington, amazing player, fantastic player. I cannot imagine what his head would be like if he got threats like this, because, Maryland lost again. We don't know yet the NIL impact, because I think there's just not enough data. And that's what a lot of this information comes down to, is like, we can see the psychological impact with players talking about how you have these sports bettors harassing them, their family, their friends. We just don't have college athletics. We have that psychological data, but I don't think we have the financial data yet.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is so new.
Very new. Very new. And, it's like a lot of this is that we think about kind of sort of a lot of college sports fans will talk about the purity of, we should keep the purity of college sports and all.
Amateurism.
A lot of people, and the amateurism aspect. Exactly. So this is why a lot of people, there's some people who really hate the transfer portal.
That's a hot topic, Eugene. Be careful.
I know. Maybe we'll have to get you on.
Maybe, oh gosh.
To talk about the whole stuff with the transfer portal and everything that goes with it. The time that we recorded this segment, the NCAA did allow for college athletes to bet on professional sports as opposed to college sports, until that was reversed a few days afterward. This was done by virtue of the fact that, just like in Congress, a supermajority, 2/3 of Division I schools, voted to stop this rule from going into effect. Those presumably among the 2/3 were schools in the Southeastern Conference. The SEC, as its commissioner Greg Sankey, wrote a letter to NCAA President Charlie Baker, urging the organization not to loosen its standards, and going on to say, quote, "If there are legal or practical concerns about the prior policy, those should be addressed through careful refinement, not through wholesale removal of the guardrails that have long supported the integrity of games and the well-being of those who participate." As we return to the conclusion of Regina's interview, I asked her as to whether or not, if or when we see the Department of Justice spend time coming down on the NBA, whether or not there will be rule changes on a state-by-state basis. Now, in Ohio, the governor, Mike DeWine, said that his state should not have legalized sports betting, citing the power of the betting companies in reaching audiences. Maryland is looking in the upcoming 2026 legislative session to repeal all sports betting. And a poll conducted by the Washington Post and the University of Maryland's Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism and the Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement showed an increased percentage of the public, over a third of them, believe that expanding the American populace's access to sports betting is not a good thing.
I think this is where, the idea of like you said, the cat's out of the bag. The cat cannot go back. Well, the cat could go back in the bag, but the toothpaste can't go back in the tube. I think what you're going to see is, because prop bets can be very small, they're not massive typically.
Yeah.
You are running into the issue that is harder to roll back. Like you're not going to be able, I think, now that you've legalized sports betting in Maryland and DC, to be like, cold turkey, not happening. That's never going to be a thing. Prop bets, is there a chance you can roll those back? Sure. Is there a likelihood? No, because lobbyists exist. Let's be real.
Yep.
And also the fact that they have brought revenue into these states now. We forget, when you have sports books and you're betting in that state, you're bringing revenue into that state. And places like Horseshoe Casino in Baltimore and Maryland Live, those are going to be very tough places to tell people no,
MGM,
because they're bringing in millions of dollars. So I don't think it'll have a chance. Parts of the world might freeze over, Eugene, before that happens. But I think that this scandal hopefully is bringing to light the seedy side of it. So we'll see.
It's going to be fascinating, indeed, Regina, to see what goes on in this. And I hope that we will bring you back on to discuss this and much more. So, Regina Ham, sports journalist, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
It's the end of the year, and with that, it ends the 6th season of Fit to Speak. We'll be back for a 7th season of the show in the around the late part of 2026, with new additions. But don't you worry, because while we are away, we will tide you over on this channel with shorts like this one that I did a while back on Taylor Swift's newest album. And as news warrants, I will provide bonus commentaries on this channel and on our Substack page, csemedia.substack.com. And be sure to subscribe to that so that you can get those and other updates on the programming that we do straight to your inbox. Also, speaking of programming, our entertainment division will be launching a brand new show, our first ever sports talk program. Spring football has sprung. In case you missed the promo that we aired last month, have a look. We're thankful for family, friends, food, football in the fall, winter, and yes, in the spring. The ball drops, not fumbles down in Times Square, we will drop a brand new trailer. So when you have the opportunity, perhaps later in the morning, do join us for that, and be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you are the first to see it. We will have much more information on our Substack page on what will be the hottest sports discussion show that has ever been done about the United Football League and all of the developments surrounding that league. And believe me, there have been a lot of changes and a lot of additions and drama and all of this stuff, all of the things this offseason. So do definitely stay tuned for that. But for this particular program that you are watching right now, I am very proud of what we have achieved together throughout the 5 years that we have done this program, especially launching this program during the many heights of what has been a defining moment in our world, the novel coronavirus pandemic. We set out to make sense of a changing world and to bring quality, fact-based journalism and discussion of topical issues without fear or favor to the forefront of American culture. These are discussions that are presented in good faith. This is especially important at a time in which we have journalists with apparently terrible books, and some news organizations, even storied ones that were the home of Walter Cronkite, are tripping over themselves to bow to a presidential administration whose idea of press freedom resembles Russia. Perhaps I could ask RT about that. And full disclosure, I worked for 2 production companies, of which RT just so happened to be the client. Oh, wait, sorry. There was an auction of RT America's equipment. The downtown Washington, D.C. office building they were in may very well soon be foreclosed, and the production company that used to occupy parts of said building, T&R Productions, has been the subject of ongoing litigation. It was determined via arbitrated proceedings that T&R owed ANO TV-Novosti, the parent company of RT, $14 million, and as of the time of this recording, questions remain on the enforcement of said award. We will link to the Pacer Monitor page as well as the Just Mundi pages, which have all, and I do mean all, of the developments on the case in the YouTube description below. Presidential administrations, no matter what party they are in, are temporary. The Constitution, the free press, and our First Amendment are forever. The only partisanship that we have when it comes to doing this program is to the truth. And in the words of Edward R. Murrow, truth is the best propaganda. Unfortunately, in our fraying political and social discourse, some of our populace are very, very, very much allergic to the truth. And it's really a shame. It really is. Some of the same people that wanted people to be fired for commenting in this life about the death of Charlie Kirk, some of those same people were awfully silent when the President of the United States, the sitting President of the United States, said this about the death of Rob Ryder, so beyond the pale that even members of his own party said it was too much, even for him. So for those who prefer their news affirmed, as opposed to being informed, in the words of Colin Cowherd, that's a you problem. We're not the show for you. There are plenty of other hosts, there are plenty of stenographers, and there are plenty of pretend journalists, not real journalists like me, but there are pretend journalists who are willing, along with some of these other people I mentioned, who are willing to spoon feed you with a cup of poisoned tomato soup and tuck you in with a chloroformed blanket of lies. But we are the antidote to that. And it has pleased me greatly throughout the years that we have done this program and that we continue to do this program, that more and more of the public have gravitated towards our brand of journalism the way that it should be practiced. Journalism as a profession, journalism as a construct, and journalism as a part of the first draft of history anywhere in the world is worth fighting for. You know what else is worth fighting for? Fighting for a quality independent media ecosystem. Now, yes, I understand the irony of saying that while hosting this program on a platform owned by Google. But just like Google is a repository of things, just like a library is a repository of books and ideas, I like to think of this program as a repository of thought. I like to think of it in that way. It really is, in my view, and I think the view of my team on this program, that this show is a repository of thought, one that I hope will survive long after I leave this planet. Hopefully not for a long time, okay? Hopefully I'll be here for at least a few decades longer, if not centuries. Who knows where medical science will be at that point. But in all seriousness, I am inspired. I am inspired by the pamphlet of Common Sense that was written by Thomas Paine that inspired the naming of the production company that produces this program. Now, there's a portion of it that I want to read for you. It says here, quote, "These proceedings may at first seem strange and difficult, but like all other steps, which we have already passed over, will in a little time become familiar and agreeable. We here at Common Sense Entertainment and CSE Media that produces this program, okay, we are the thought leaders of the 21st century. And it is my hope that in the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th century, who knows whether I will be available for any of that, but it is my hope that future generations, however they come across this show, will consider us and the shows that we have done, and the shows that we will continue to do, to be part of the greatest repository of thought, and that we are the greatest thought leaders of all time. We really are. I end this show by thanking all of you, our loyal audience, guests, and my team here at Common Sense Entertainment and CSE Media for the 5 years that we have done this show. And here's to many more editions of this program. And I also would like to thank even in the words of the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the haters and losers for their stuff. Folks, I can tell you this. In 2026 and beyond, you might not see the vision, but damn it, you will see us. Thank you so much for watching. Listen, there's going to be a lot more where that came from in 2026, so you better stay tuned to catch it all. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts for more information, including all of the bonus content that you'll see from today's show. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes, and do subscribe to our Substack page, csamedia.substack.com, to support all of the work that we do here. Until next year, I'm Eugene Obah, and remember, we will not be silenced.